Welcome to another Let's Talk Paranormal, and David Sereda joins me in the studio today for part 2 of Evidence, the Case for NASA UFOs. David has been researching and analyzing UFOs for a number of years now, and in particular the NASA footage, and has put together recently his DVD, Evidence, the Case for NASA UFOs, and he joins us once again in the studio. Welcome back, David.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, so soon.
Yes, I know. Don't the weeks fly by?
Yeah.
I want to bring up the footage that we last looked at in part 1 of our show, and that was the water balls that were coming down into the Earth's atmosphere. Let's just pull this footage up again for our viewers at home, just to take a look at this, and just talk us through this, David, what we're seeing.
This is STS-80, and you can see this very translucent, which I believe is a low mass gravity effect water ball, possibly, or possibly a craft. I don't know. When Louis A. Frank saw this actual video footage at NASA, he believed these were possibly the same objects he had seen on the invisible ultraviolet still photographs from the very satellite that he has been studying. But in this particular case of STS-80 we're looking at here, you see also this other object moving very slowly above. You see this one.
Yes,
now meteorites don't move that slow, sorry.
Right.
And also you can see the glow of the Earth's atmosphere, which means we are above the top of the atmosphere. The top of the atmosphere is 100 miles above the Earth, and the shuttle is about 300 miles above the Earth right now. So we're way up there. We're not in the atmosphere. And what actually starts to happen in this scene is these UFOs actually gather in this circle or arc. And then we see one in the end flying into the center. And then as they reach their positions, they stop. And then they start to give off this extra luminosity. And you wonder, how does dust move around like this and stop and then suddenly give off this extra luminosity? And also, if you look at crop circles, very interesting here. Because in crop circles in England, we have seen these same translucent, soft balls of light flying around the crop circles.
That's a very good point.
And notice this is a circle.
Absolutely.
And that they're gathering in a circle which signifies intelligence. So it's possible.
Look at that.
These are the same translucent balls of light that are showing up in crop circles and may be responsible for their formations.
Right.
And here they are in a circle formation in space. There could be a connection here.
So that craft that we just saw flying very slowly above the Earth's atmosphere, now do you think that could be guiding these things? Monitoring them?
Well, you can only hypothesize. Again, you see here the one lighting up in the center of the circle. They're definitely intelligent. There's no way NASA can say this is debris behaving so intelligently. It's purely ridiculous.
Dave, why aren't NASA coming forward to talk about this?
Well, it's funny
why
when
are they so scared to
you know, and I know when we go to these UFO conferences at MUFON in Denver a couple of years ago, NASA approached me, a top person at the Johnson Space Center in propulsion, to write a theoretical paper on how these UFOs move. NASA's there. I spoke in Washington at the X conference, and the top Army physicists are there taking notes on every lecture. So they are interested, but they don't publicly disclose that because they don't want to cause pandemonium and shock. So they are very interested.
But aren't NASA an organization that do disclose things to the public?
They're supposed to. They're a public organization. But in the laws on NASA, when it was first formed in 1958 after the Brookings study, they said they would disclose everything to us openly except for that which could be a threat to national security. Until they can determine whether UFOs are a threat to national security, they do not have to disclose. Right. But really they have already. I mean, there are so many people at NASA who are interested in UFOs, as we mentioned in the last show. Astronauts and top officials over there.
Right.
But they won't make a public statement about it.
Not yet, at
Not
least.
yet, no.
But you think they will?
Well, Gordon Cooper went public and said he chased UFOs in Germany post-World War II and had the incident at the Reserve Force Base.
That's right, right.
There were a number of extraterrestrial vehicles out there cruising around, flying the same kind of formation we fly in our fighter. They didn't have wings, they were saucer-shaped, and we never could get as high or as fast as they were, so to really positively identify them, but they were metallic-looking and saucer in shape. And they could do a few maneuvers that we couldn't do in an airplane, like just horizontally displace themselves rapidly, be flying along and just move over rapidly. I had a film crew working for me on a project I was doing to put a precision landing system in on the edge of the dry lake bed, and they were filming the various stages of the installation. And a small saucer apparently flew overhead and put down some landing gear and landed out on the dry lake bed, only about 50 yards out. And these were old pro cameramen who were used to flying in all kinds of vehicles to take all kinds of pictures. And so they picked up their cameras and started over toward it and going to get some close-ups. And with that, it lifted up, put the gear back in, and at a very high rate of speed disappeared. So they came in to tell me what happened. I told them to get over to the lab and develop the film immediately. And I would go and look in the book, regulation book, and see what you're supposed to do, who you have to call to report these kind of incidents, which I did. And by the time they got back with the film, there was a higher and higher and higher ranked man preceding the last one, assuring me that I had to get those negatives into a pouch, and that they had made arrangements already to get our commanding general's airplane reserved and take the films to Washington. This universe is limitless and tremendous big universe, and we're kind of vain to think that we're the only ones that exist here. I think we'll find that there are probably hundreds of other planets that are habitated, and that there are all levels of civilization, some maybe at the same level we are, others that may be thousands and millions of years ahead of us in development.
Okay, well, we know then that what we've just seen with this footage here, it's certainly not space debris, it's not shooting stars, it looks intelligent, and it is.
It's moving too slow to be meteorites.
Right.
You know, and then there are these times when you have these sudden flashes of light on STS-45, some of the earlier missions that Jack Kasher went into, and NASA said it's debris responding to the shuttle's thruster engines. Had it been debris, as the shuttle made an adjustment, the camera position would turn consistent with the degree of the thrust, and there's no change in the camera position at all, which means the burst is likely to be from some other source, possibly the UFOs themselves, producing a burst of energy in a flash, and they go accelerating off.
Before we touch on the next piece of footage here, David, let's just talk about our government for a moment. The Bush administration. What do you think the Bush administration really know?
I don't think that any president, including Clinton and Reagan, who have also spoken about UFOs, and Jimmy Carter, who had a sighting and testified. Grant Cameron at presidentialufo.com did a study into presidents. If they don't know, and Congress doesn't know, then who does? The real issue here is if someone in the Air Force or these top corporations like Lockheed Martin know about UFOs, why doesn't Congress? And the danger here is, again, if China spent $20 million on a UFO research center this year, in Russia they're studying in their universities, and also in China. If another country figures out anti-gravity before us, we will lose the air superiority position on this planet. Now, if we are doing it at a black level in our country, if we actually are, Congress has to confirm that. If they cannot confirm it, and the president can't confirm it, we are in danger of losing this air superiority. Now, I mean, I'm all for a peaceful world and a nonviolent world, but if we look at China's recent invasion in 1958 of Tibet and massacring, 2 million Tibetans, what would China do if they possessed this technology today? There's a country of, over 1 billion people. Their borders are bursting.
Right.
We know what happens as, Mexico's country is bursting and they're flooding into the United States. What's going to happen when they possess the superior advantage? Will they conquer us?
Well, that might push the American administration to come forward if they know they,
We have to confirm it. And that's what I don't like about our government. There's a black level, but the president doesn't know, Cheney doesn't know, senators don't know. You have to confirm this.
But George Bush Sr., who was head of CIA, apparently he was taken to see the Roswell craft, the remains of it, and bodies, apparently. We cannot confirm that, but apparently he knows something. So.
Well, Colonel Philip Corso went forward before he died in his book, The Day After Roswell. So we know, we have confirmation from many people at the government level. But what I don't like, where we're insecure, is it's all about technology. UFOs possess technology to solve our environmental and energy crisis, which we're facing right now. The big oil crisis is upon us, the end of oil. So we need to study it and take it seriously in our universities. I know from having worked with many of the top physicists in the world, like Glenn Seaborg and Murray Gell-Mann, Bogdan Castle-Magwitch, and many others, that they laugh at UFOs and they won't talk about it. So I know they're not studying it. And I believe that's a grave mistake. We have to change that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Let's look at this tether footage, David. This is some amazing footage here from '96.
STS-75, the tether incident. I mean, this was an incredible event where we launched a 12-mile-long tethered satellite. It's an antenna attached to a satellite. NASA was doing experiments where they dragged this thermodynamic tether through the ionosphere, which is about 100-mile range above the Earth, where there's this field around the Earth full of charged particles. They were trying to gather free electricity to see if we could tap into that free energy and use it to power the space stations. The space station has to use booster rockets to stay in orbit because it wants to decay and eventually fall into the Earth. And it takes a lot of energy to run those boosters. So NASA was hoping that they could produce free energy just by dragging this electrodynamic antenna through the ionosphere to produce electricity. What happened is more electricity than they expected flooded the cable. It snaps and it breaks. And 3 days later, when the shuttle is making an orbital pass around the Earth, they're flying by it. And again, the cameras can see invisible wavelengths, and something amazing happens. And what's so amazing about this is, the tether is 12 miles long. It has an ionized electric field around it, which is why it appears so thick.
Right.
And also the nitrogen gas was also gathered around that field. So it's kind of like an atmosphere. It has a density to it. It's probably about a half a mile thick when we're 100 miles away. And the cameras can see ultraviolet wavelengths. We know that. And then these giant discs can show up on the cameras, and you can see them passing behind the tether. The camera's here, the tether's here, and because they're going behind it, we know they're not dust near the camera because the camera's 100 miles away.
Right, and that's the important thing, that you see it pass behind the tether.
Clearly going behind it.
Oh, clearly,
And we notice they have dark centers, they're pulsing. They're probably 2 to 3 miles in diameter because we can use the 12-mile length of the tether as a measuring rod to measure their minimum diameters. If they're right up behind the back of the tether.
And look at this. This looks like we're looking at something under a microscope here.
Except they're huge. That line is 12 miles long. Those discs, clearly going behind it, are 1 mile to 3 miles wide. They could be bigger if they're further behind the tether than I think. This makes them Independence Day size ships. I mean, look at this thing. Huge. If those were hovering over Manhattan or Chicago or LA and they materialized, it would be Independence Day.
We'd be doomed.
It would be the end of the world. We would think, oh my God, ET's here, they're going to take us over.
Exactly.
That's why I believe they stay in the invisible. And if you notice, they're translucent, they pulse, they have dark centers. Now, Project Blue Book, in 2 cases I've studied, eyewitnesses over California, near Apple Valley in California, eyewitnesses saw UFOs that looked like they were made of light with black centers.
Really?
Trevor James Constable, who's the pioneer of invisible photography, photographed
I know him.
UFOs out at Landers,
Right.
Giant Rock. When George Van Tassel was channeling ETs, he took pictures because no one could see these UFOs in the infrared, but there they were with dark centers and translucent mass, the same as what we're seeing on the space shuttle. So when Trevor Constable saw my film, Evidence the Case for NASA UFOs, he went, wait a minute, in the 1950s, I captured these same things on film. That's how I know. We have confirmation from Constable that these are not dust balls.
Absolutely.
These are true invisible phenomena.
You just got to be so out of your mind to think that they're anything but intelligently guided craft.
They look intelligent. They're pulsing.
Absolutely.
In fact, when I slowed the film down and looked at the pulses themselves, I could see wave formations that allowed me to understand in quantum physics how these craft are actually moving around, how they're doing it.
So do we know, David, what NASA are saying about this footage, or?
A lot of the information from NASA was classified on the tether incident. In fact, that was posted on their website. You needed an access code to get to the data. But clearly, publicly, they say it's just debris. Giving us this optical illusion floating near the camera lenses. And really, when you look at the debris phenomenon in space, you mostly have micrometeorites that are, again, doing tens of thousands of miles per hour, so you would never see them floating around so slowly. Also, the object in the videotape, they're all moving at different velocities.
That's right.
Now, if you look at dust in your room when the sunlight's coming through, the rate of drift on all the dust they're all the same race. That's Newtonian Galileo physics. Gravity causes objects to fall at the same rate unless they have internal energy inside of them. Some of these are zipping by, some of them are almost stopped. So they're all going at different rates. Now, had that been debris, that would be impossible to do. It should all be drifting as debris does at the same rate of speed. They're all enveloped in the gravity field.
Some are going up, some are coming down.
No, there's no way it's natural debris. It's impossible. They have internal energy in them.
So why do you think they were attracted to that piece of tether, in your estimation?
I think ETs have been curious about a lot of things we've been doing on this planet. That was a major experiment, and there was a lot of energy in that experiment, and they were attracted to it. I think they were attracted to Roswell. They were attracted to the first atomic bomb we detonated in New Mexico on July 5th, 1945.
Because evidently what affects us here affects them out there.
I think I think we're in a relationship. They're curious about us. On the first atomic bomb was July 5th through the 9th. We don't know when they detonated in 1945 at the Trinity site at White Sands, New Mexico. 2 years later, same date, 2 saucers crash on either side of the atomic explosion. Why? I believe they're vibrating in ultraviolet and gamma frequency wavelengths. An atomic bomb, which, imagine these 2 UFOs made of pure light energy. They have volume, they have size. They're vibrating in the gamma spectrum. When a nuclear bomb goes off, you get this huge burst of gamma radiation. And as a wave, the gammas would, because they're at the same frequencies, these UFOs, they would throw them off, just like a wave bashing a surfer on his board. And it throws them off. Both saucers crash on either side of Trinity, the nuclear bomb site, one in Plains of St. Augustine's and one at Roswell. But 2 years later, Why 2 years later? Because of time dilation.
Right.
In the higher frequency dimension, time slows down. So we don't see the effects of the atomic blast on the UFOs except for 2 years later.
Interesting.
That's my theory on Roswell.
Okay. I want to bring your attention to this picture of a Droper stone, David. The Droper stones are so interesting, and how bizarre they are, because they resemble what we've just seen here in space. I mean, look at that.
Yeah, the Droper stone was found on the Tibetan-Chinese border in 1936 by a British archaeologist, and I forget his name at the top of my head. And a Chinese archaeology team goes in, Dr. Sum Nui goes in, and they find these discs in an area where there's this legend that a giant spacecraft crash landed in those mountains thousands of years before, and that there were aliens inside of the ship, and they built these Droper stones to resemble what the spaceship looked like.
Right.
And they actually, in the caves where they buried the ancestors who come from the lineage of these extraterrestrials, they made little pea-sized dots that connect Earth with the star system that they were from, and they claim they were from the star system of Sirius.
Well, I did a little bit of research on that, and I came up with the fact that Droper stones reveal themselves to be ancient artists' renditions of spacecraft that crash-landed on Earth from the star system of Sirius 12,000 years ago. So,
and if you look at them, they have a dark center, they have a
right.
rectangular notch out of the side, they're disc-shaped, just like the UFOs we're seeing on the Tether incident.
So it's identical.
It's identical, and then what's really amazing is, according to the author of The Sirius Mystery, Robert Temple, he said that the Dogon tribe in Mali, northwest Africa, migrated from ancient Egypt in ancient times to keep pre-dynastic knowledge of the ancestors of the great Egyptian civilizations, and said that they were from the star system of Sirius. What's amazing is, during the incident, the Tether incident, guess where the shuttle is passing directly over at that time?
Oh my God.
Mali, northwest Africa, and then right over Egypt. Is that a coincidence?
Oh my goodness me.
In fact, the Dogon tribe today, who's alive today, they know more about the star system of Sirius than today's astronomers, and they predict that the beings from Sirius would return, and they prophesy their return, and they say it will be the day of the many moons, because they're moon-shaped, disc-shaped, luminous objects would show up in our skies, and of course, these are very luminous, disc-shaped objects, and we can confirm from NASA right over their heads.
Right. Do you think, Dave, do you think NASA is trying to make any connection to all of this with the star system Sirius? Are they trying to communicate, do you think?
There may be very, occultly educated people at NASA, and Richard Hoagland is a great expert on that, who know that we have made contact with Sirius and beings from that star system. I propose that in my film, and when you see the film, you can see exactly how that plays out. I think there are some people there. Again, remember, NASA is an enormous agency. And like any large corporation, people disagree with each other inside the corporation. So there are people at NASA who are very mystified by UFOs in corrupt circles, and there are people there who think it's all lame.
Right. Well, let's have a look at what some of the astronauts have been saying, because this is pretty fascinating. The late Gordon Cooper said, quote, "I believe that these extraterrestrial vehicles and their crews are visiting this planet from other planets, which obviously are a little more technically advanced than we are here on Earth. I feel that we need to have a top-level coordinated program to scientifically collect and analyze data from all over the Earth concerning any type of encounter, and to determine how best to interface with these visitors in a friendly fashion," end quote. Did you ever get to meet Gordon Cooper?
We were supposed to meet because I went on Fox News to talk about this film, the X-Files grand finale episode, season 9. Right after the show aired, they put me on the Fox News, and I was on with Gordon Cooper. Right. My name was David Cooper in the 60s, and I followed every Apollo mission from the beginning to the end.
You wanted to be an astronaut, right?
I wanted to be an astronaut, and the closest I've been into space is skydiving from 24,000 feet. So that's as far as I got. But Cooper has chased UFOs in his F-86 in Germany after World War II. He testified that they were in a fighter formation, and they would do maneuvers that were far more advanced than our aircraft can do.
Right.
They did things that defied, the problem of G-forces. When Cooper describes the way the UFOs move, the sudden high-speed turns and the zipping turns, from being an Air Force pilot that you could not survive the G-forces of those turns unless the pilot and the ship were at zero mass gravity.
Right.
And if you have no mass gravity, you have no G-forces.
Right. Let's take a look at Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 10, 14, and 16 astronaut. Quote, "Yes, there have been ET visitations. There have been crashed craft. There have been material and bodies recovered there. There has been a certain amount of reverse engineering that has allowed some of these craft or some components to be duplicated. And there is some group of people that may or may not be associated with government at this point, but certainly were at one time, that have this knowledge. They have been attempted to conceal this knowledge or not permit it to be widely disseminated," end quote.
What's amazing to me, I mean, I think both Gordon Cooper and Edgar Mitchell, and I've met Mitchell briefly in the hallway at the Roswell conference, and we've had amazing debates on the internet about, you know, quantum physics and how UFOs move. But both of these guys are disclosing to us, and they are NASA. So we have to say that we have had disclosure, because if Cooper says he chased UFOs, he chased UFOs. It's the end of the debate. If he said that he filmed a UFO landing at Edwards Air Force Base in the 1950s, which, you know, his team did, and he saw the film, then it happened. If Edgar Mitchell is saying that UFOs are real and he has seen the evidence, then it is. It's factoid at that point, and the debate is over. So in a way, we've had disclosure. Right. And these two men deserve to be called, you know, groundbreaking heroes in this field.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if an astronaut comes forward and says this information, we have to believe, surely, you know, like you say. What about Story Musgrave, Apollo 16 astronaut? Quote, certainly there are hugely advanced civilization intelligences, life forms out there. I believe they're so advanced they're even doing interstellar travel. I believe it's possible they even came here. End quote.
Story Musgrave is a space shuttle, you know, astronaut and commander, and he has testified to seeing things out there that he couldn't explain. And you know, this is very recent. You're talking the space shuttle here. Yet, when people like James Oberg, a public spokesperson for NASA, hears reports like that, and Gordon Cooper, they say, well, he's crazy. You know, Gordon Cooper had Parkinson's. Well, Parkinson's is not schizophrenia. There's no evidence that the disease that Cooper had, and you know, Story Musgrave is not mentally ill, and neither is Edgar Mitchell. So how do you say they're crazy, you know, as witnesses? You can't, that is insulting to our heroes.
Exactly.
You know, I believe the words of James Oberg should be, what do you say about James Oberg, really, without insulting him? He has no right to insult our heroes.
No, absolutely. I agree. Astronaut Scott Carpenter, his quote is, at no time when the astronauts were in space were they alone. There was a constant surveillance by UFOs, end quote. And apparently Scott Carpenter did photograph a UFO while in orbit on May 24th, 1962, of which NASA still has not released the photograph.
Yes, I mean, Scott Carpenter and who was the astronaut who was the senator? I don't know why I'm blanking.
I can't think who he is right now.
I don't know why I'm blanking his name. He was one of the early Gemini pilots. They both saw these mysterious fireflies, these glowing orbs that spun around their capsules. And of course, NASA said, well, those were just because when they did the dumps from them urinating, the water crystals would freeze in space and spin around the craft. Really, you guys.
Oh my goodness. Astronaut Brian O'Leary, quote, we have contact with alien cultures. That's a pretty straightforward, bold statement.
Yeah, Brian O'Leary is, you know, he never actually got to go on a mission, but he trained, and he has access to a lot of good information, and he's definitely a hero for coming forward to say that, you know, how can you deny it when so many astronauts are saying this? These are the real experiencers in space. You know, James Oberg is sitting in the control center, and, you know, he doesn't believe it. But Oberg worked for John Schuessler, and Schuessler at NASA is now the head of MUFON, one of the largest UFO organizations in the world, and he believes that UFOs are real, and he keeps a file of every astronaut who has testified.
Right.
So this shows the debate. You know, it's not a standard thing that UFOs don't exist, according to NASA.
Right, exactly. Also, a Russian astronaut who saw a UFO from the porthole of his spacecraft says he does not believe other astronauts that say they have never seen anything unusual in space. So they're all seeing something unusual up there. Yeah,
a lot of them are seeing, you know, unless your head is stuck against, you know, the inside of the... It's like humans, you know, we work in offices all day long. You're not going to see a UFO in your office.
Of course.
When I was a little kid, I was walking home from school every day. It was religion. I wasn't being driven by my parents' car because we didn't have the violence problems back then. And I just looked up, you know, on that long walk home. You have to get outside or get into space to see UFOs or be an Air Force pilot. And these are the people who are seeing them, you know, people who are outdoors.
Right. Right.
You know, you're not going to see it sitting inside of your office in Los Angeles.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, I've seen dozens of UFOs. So, you know, these people don't stand alone. There's many, many people out there.
Yeah, the Phoenix Lights incident, you saw a triangle over the MGM studios. These triangles are being seen all over the world. In fact, again, in this whole invisible detection phenomena, I saw a kid took a picture up in the sky at sunset, and this beautiful triangle with the lights on all the ends of the formations, and you can see the black mass in the triangle showed up on his photograph, and he didn't see it when he took the picture.
Right.
The triangles are everywhere. They really fascinate me.
Yeah, many people are seeing that type of craft now than ever before. I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I think something is about to happen.
You do?
I think we're heading towards an omega point. The numbers of sightings are getting greater and greater.
Yes, they are.
Consistent with the destruction to our ozone layer, our greenhouse gas, you know, global warming. I think they're very concerned about our planet, and it's possible that many of them cohabit Earth in an interdimensional way, that many of them live here in parallel invisible dimensions on the Earth, and they're concerned because the planet is being destroyed. It's also possible that there are hidden cities in the Himalayas like Shambhala, where some of these ETs have been living interdimensionally with us for thousands of years.
Yeah, things that we haven't discovered yet.
Things we haven't discovered yet. I mean, the ocean is 2/3 of the volume of mass, surface mass, as the land mass. And we haven't even explored most of our land mass. So it's possible there are interdimensional and possible visible spaceports for these extraterrestrials that they have set up on the Earth.
Right. I want to ask you this question real quick, David, before we close the show today. I had a guest on our show back in November, Ale Marzulli. Exceptionally great guy. He's an author of the Nephilim trilogy. And he's a minister. He had actually said that his belief, and most Christian beliefs are, that what we're seeing out there, these UFOs, is that we're seeing something demonic, that we're actually dealing with demonic sources and not extraterrestrial.
Oh, it's funny because I consider myself a Catholic mystic. I've been practicing meditation for 25 years. I think that's just pure fear. I mean, to say that everything out from the outside is demonic.
Right.
We're the ones destroying our own planet.
That's a good point.
We're the ones who are killing each other in wars and committing genocide. If anything is demonic, it's the people on this planet who are controlling the situation here and destroying everything. To say that, I mean, imagine traveling halfway across the universe because you want to find if there's life somewhere else, and you find this beautiful blue pearl, and you go, wow, there's life, let's go meet them. And they start shooting at you, and who's demonic?
Right. Absolutely.
A demon, I mean, evil is live backwards. It means that which takes life, that which destroys life. There's no evidence that extraterrestrials are destroying our planet.
That's right. There's no evidence at this point.
Not at this point.
And so we leave the question open to our audience today. What do you believe in the UFO phenomena? You can certainly email me, and you can check out our website and see more of David at www.letstalkparanormal.com, and of course David's website also at nasaufo.com.
UFONASA.com.
Sorry, UFONASA.com. I want to end the show today with a Roper poll, and that is 1 in 7 Americans say that they or someone they know have had an experience involving a UFO. Until next time, keep your eyes to the skies, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.